And we're back.
Hey, good to see you. Good to see you. So, Fallout. Wow.
Oh, how
That's
far
all
are
I
you
can
in it?
say. Uh, it's funny, like I hadn't watched anything till last night, and then I realized I think what you were saying is you've watched like a bunch, right?
I've watched all of it. That's how good it was.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what
It was
I
like a
can.
box of chocolates, and I've been starved of. Okay, let me tell you this.
Well, I'll tell you.
Yeah, you go
Let me
first. Yeah.
just say that I started watching last night, and me being somebody who's starved for sleep and all the other things that are going on in the normal world.
Yeah.
I watched about half of the first one last night and fell asleep, but it was like mind blowing,
Hmm.
and but I just couldn't stay awake, and so I woke up this morning and started watching like right away, and I watched two episodes, the first two episodes. Like I
All
could
right.
totally spend the whole day watching it today. That is not possible in this timeline, but it is freaking great. Like there's nothing. Now I don't know anything about Fallout, and we can cover that too,
Mhm.
but there's like nothing that's really bugging me. There's like questions and this, that, and the
Right.
other and
Yeah.
stuff. But like from a sci-fi point of view, it's
There's
and
no
it's
issue.
and yeah, and it's got its like universal rules kind of, right? So it's
Right.
got
But
this
but it explains you. It explains it
yeah.
to you,
I
kind
just
of.
mean I just mean there's lots of questions, right? Like who built the
Hmm.
things and how did they get in there and this, like all that stuff, but that's
Yeah.
fine. It's
Yeah.
it's more, and there is that like steampunk sci-fi
Hmm.
element to it, right? And the blending of the 1950s and stuff. But anyways,
Yeah.
I've said a lot. I really like it. I
Okay.
really like it.
So for me, this show is like I'm a big, huge Halo fan. I'm a pretty, I'd say, good Fallout fan.
Of the games.
Yeah. This show, you know how I said originally in the Halo series, I felt like this show, the first few episodes were like half the series basically was like I was promised a feast and instead given like a plate of crackers. But like the
Right.
last three episodes were like a burger.
Right.
Like, this show, I kind of expected like, okay, this is gonna be um like a big, like a really hearty meal. But instead, I've been given an entire banquet.
Oh, you love it, eh? All the way to the
I
banquet. All the way to banquet.
I absolutely adored. I finished all 8 episodes in like 2 days. And
Wow.
okay, I gotta say, Kevin, take your time to obviously watch it because obviously you have a lot of stuff you need to do as an adult. But if you can, this should be your go-to show because there is
A lot
twist
going
upon
on.
twist,
Yeah.
and you don't expect any of it, and then it hits you, and you're like, "Whoa,
So
that
if we talk about like, there's three main characters and kind of like three
right,
plot lines, right?
right."
And in a
But they do
way,
it amazingly.
right. But in a way, for me, the three characters are almost like three different, like they've got vibes of three different
Mhm.
shows that I've seen in the last few years that are all like merging in the same universe, right?
And
So,
it
so
works.
right. And so for instance, the ghoul guy, I don't know
Mhm.
why, but I get these, he's cowboy and but I get also get these vibes from like Westworld a bit, I mean, I
Yeah,
know that's a
yeah.
totally different topic, but there's this, he's this like this certain kind of character. Then the guy who I'm
I
blanking
think
on his
Titus,
Titus or something,
some
yeah, who
yeah,
gets in the
something like that.
suit,
Yeah.
right? Like in the second episode, he's just climbed into the suit,
Mhm.
and so I mean, there's an aspect there that's a bit like Halo, right? Like the what do you call him
Right.
again? The
Mjolnir armor. Mjolnir. That's the armor.
what's it called?
The armor is called Mjolnir.
Mjolnir. Yeah, either
Yeah.
Mjolnir or the other. What are
Uh, so
the
yeah, like the Spartan 3 armors, right? Yeah,
well,
like
no, 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 not, but the bad guys. What are they called? The
Elites.
elites, yeah, right. So
Yeah,
there's an
Sankili
aspect,
guys. Yeah.
because I didn't know, right, again, in the first couple episodes, I didn't know that, like, is there a person inside or is it a robot, right?
Right. Right.
And so there's, there's something about this armor or whatever that reminds me a bit of Halo. And
Hmm.
then, then it's, I don't know, she's almost like
Lucy. I think it's
Lucy.
Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy is almost like, what's it called, that there's a second kind of generation of stories, prequels going on right now.
Yeah. It's like the
Songbird or whatever.
Songbird.
What's that?
Or Star Wars.
No,
Try to remember.
no, it's
Uh,
about the kid. The original episode, the original sci-fi is the there's that battle from the District 13 or whatever. You know what I mean?
oh, a Songbird and Snakes. I think
Songbirds
that's a
and
movie.
Snakes. Yeah, but what's the original one called?
Hunger Games.
Hunger Games.
The original
So
game. Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know, there's something kind of Hunger Games about her, or even that other one we watched just recently, right? With the tube or whatever it's called. The
The tube.
remember, there's one episode on somewhere called the silo,
Oh, the silo. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So
Like the show, the
there's
silo. Yeah.
this,
It's like
like
this
how
person's.
did the silo not like get their idea from this one or something? You know what I mean? Like
Maybe
there's
they
just
did.
so
Maybe
many.
they
Yeah, maybe
did.
they did. There's just so many. And the second season of the Hunger Games is totally set in this like 1950s TV thing, right?
Hmm.
The anyways, there's so much going on,
Yeah.
and again, in things like this, sometimes you're waiting for like the sci-fi to
Bad.
break down, or something weird, or like that's kind of wacky, or
Yeah. Yeah.
they couldn't be bothered to like.
But they make it work, and I've got to say, I've
Yeah,
watched all the episodes. They make it work.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
sure, maybe there's like a nitpick or two, but like nitpicks, really. I watched a person talk about it who was like a
Who
really
do you
like
remember who it was?
yeah, Oxhorn.
Oxhorn.
He's like I
Okay,
know him
shout out to
mainly.
Oxhorn.
Yeah, shout out to Oxhorn, who kind of spoiler free reviewed the first two episodes. Maybe even if you want or if you can, maybe watch his
Yep,
thing on
for
it.
sure.
Only watch if you've watched both episodes fully. He talks. I know him mainly for his Fallout stuff. Um, and so the big thing he says is that like this show does not like he said there's two important things that the show needs to do. It needs to stick to it like the foundation of the original game, but it can get some facets of the game wrong. But what he said is that like these two episodes at least have nailed the foundation, and maybe one or two facets have gone a bit off, but to me personally the show is flawless, or flawless enough that it does have flaws but it makes it good. Like
And have you played the game, bud? Because I mean, Halo
yeah,
is your
yeah.
main game, right? So when you're
Mhm.
watching Halo, you've got so much of the game and the lore and all that stuff wrapped up,
Right.
right? To what extent are you, wrapped up in Fallout? Like lightly, like on a
um
scale of 1 to 10,
I'd
like
say kind of maybe a bit more on the light to medium. Like I
right.
don't follow it too much, but it's a fun game. Fun game
So that's
series.
probably the perfect amount for this show, right? Because you're
Yeah,
not like
yeah.
so focused on like, oh, that guy has two left feet and he's supposed to only have one or
Right.
whatever,
Yeah, like
right?
the show goes e does it so that like people who don't know the games can get into it, and people who do know the games can also get into it.
Hmm. And
Like
it's a shooter game, right? Like you're playing
well,
one of these
it's not
characters in
just a
the game,
shooter game, but it's an exploration game. Like you're in a
right?
world with the aesthetic of 1950s mixed with like a bunch of others, and it
Right.
works. And
Yeah.
so yeah,
Oh,
like
oh
this.
yeah. Hey, sorry, along that lines, the other thing that's similar to Halo is, and again, I don't need to know all about it because I'm still
Mhm.
discovering, right? So let's not, no spoilers here really,
Right.
but it's the whole kind of relic thing, right? Like the army of iron and steel or whatever he's called,
The Brotherhood of Steel.
Brotherhood of Steel, and they're supposed to like discover relics, or like they've got this
Right.
super high tech, obviously, because they're building armor and everything, but they're still looking for like toasters or whatever. Hey, hold up your hands for a
Yeah.
sec.
Yeah.
So this is one. Okay, that's good. This is one of the quotes. Like when I'm watching these things, I'm like, oh, that's a quote I'm going to try and use. Oh, that's a quote, and I always forget when we get to this point. But the old woman behind the counter, kind of, or the woman behind the counter, she's like, well, you got 10 fingers. You're doing pretty well there, or something like that. Whatever that quote was,
Oh
right?
yeah, that.
You got all your
That
fingers. You're doing pretty well.
you got most of your teeth, it seems, at least.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Um,
yeah, this
but
is yeah,
anyways, the
that's
relic thing was a bit there was it was just interesting, right? Like it's not identical, but it just
mhm.
sort of skimmed
Yeah,
that concept, and there's so much, obviously we're interested in why they're looking for toasters or whatever, right?
yeah, it's interesting. Like in this show, they have a bunch of different factions with like different looks and ideals and actions and beliefs and power.
Yeah,
And we see in like the first two episodes, we see how different the ghoul character is to the knight, and how both of them are so different from Lucy. Because like,
right.
she's raised
And it's so
in
interesting that
this.
all of them are like after the same guy, right?
Right. And like all the different aesthetics and ideas work together
Right.
like a perfect machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um
Yeah,
yeah, like
it's great. It's good. Well, I think we should keep this short. We're obviously
right.
really keen. I will try and finish it, and we can come back for another you know, for
Go
another
at it.
recap. You decide whether you want to recap. We'll see how fast. I will not get through 6 episodes today, but
Yeah, no,
whether
it's yeah.
you've got a few exams on the go, and so maybe when the exams are done, we can which is
Yeah,
like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we can
we can do
recap the
our
show
thing.
again.
Yeah.
I want to do a shout out to our our new subscribers,
For
which is awesome.
yeah,
And and uh and sorry, what was his name again?
Oxhorn.
Yeah. And
Yeah, his
I'll try and check out his stuff. And
yeah, B okay, so important thing, he makes sure that like he doesn't spoil anything. It may
right,
be a bit difficult to follow along, but he's basically talking from the point of view as someone who's just watched the first two episodes. So I
right.
don't think you'll
Which
see any
is where I'm at.
spoilers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's
I don't know, like
yeah,
I'm just really enjoying it so much, right? So
right. It's this is what I wish would have happened with the Halo show, because this
right.
show
But
does good.
it's interesting, right? Because this is not set in space. It's sci-fi, it's
Yeah,
set in the future,
obviously.
but it doesn't have space travel, right? And being a kind of a transportation guy myself, whenever there's moving stuff, there's certain laws of physics that either we don't
Mhm.
understand, or you have to kind of like suspend belief or whatever. So there's more stuff like when it comes to space, right? You just have to
Right.
accept that people can like travel light speed or
Right.
go through wormholes, or
Yeah.
all that stuff. Anyway, so this is sci-fi. um but
Yeah, like how those like the big those like that massive ship
yeah,
with the
big
like
shit,
small ones.
all that stuff, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
again, I love it, right? 10 years
Mhm.
old, Star Wars, ships in space, Battlestar Galactica, all
Right.
that stuff, right? Star Trek, I'm good with that. But so this is sci-fi, but obviously it's set on a single planet so far, at
Right.
least in the
Yeah.
first two, and so there's it, you're not in space, right? It's a little bit different, but
Yeah.
I
But
liked
it's not
Halo, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm showing up at both of these as being a non-gamer, not really,
Mhm.
again, right? My gaming started at Pong and ended at like in television or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm approaching both of these without the lore, right? That's kind of what's going on. You're helping
Mhm.
me understand the lore and that sort of stuff. um Halo is more
Star Wars
that,
like.
well, yeah, it's more that space, you're set in an intergalactic system, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
it's it's all that stuff, whereas this is very much like it's
Focused
Earth.
on one place.
And it's Earth, right? It's where we
Yeah.
live. It's set 200 years or whatever, or after some crazy thing, so it's in the future, slightly different
Yeah.
alternate future, right? With the
Mhm.
retro and all that stuff, but it's
Yeah.
still, not so
Mhm.
wacky, that, I mean, I think that's one of the tough things about sci-fi nowadays. And maybe that's why people are doing this retro and stuff, because it's just like, man, we're
Almost feels
living
like
in,
worn out, like, we've
well, I don't know if if we were talking about this on here, or I was talking about this with some friends or what, but like, it's hard to do sci-fi because like sci-fi is so close for us, right? Like we're dealing with like
Mhm.
AI right now that like people are
Yeah.
saying in days or months or a year ago or whatever, this stuff is about to go, um, you know, whatever it is, like
Yeah.
general intelligence or whatever,
Mhm.
AGI or whatever they call it. And so, man, if you watch like a movie from like 4 years ago, they didn't really
They were either
understand what.
way too far or not far enough.
Yeah, not like it's just like when you go back and you watch, I mean, that's also kind of an interesting thing to do, right? Which we've done with some of those
Yeah.
shows we've watched recently, like Back to the Future or
Real
that
Steel.
Real Steel and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And it's funny because you go back and then what they imagine, like they just had no idea that the future, a crazy ass AI future was going to be here in
Right.
10 years, right? Not
Yeah.
not like 50 years or whatever. Like they
Yeah.
just didn't realize how fast it was coming. So it's hard to do sci-fi. And so it's,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm just wondering whether people are
That's
choosing to do sci-fi,
yeah.
this retro. Anyways,
I think that's
it's
what
interesting.
makes this show so great because like it has the ideas of sci-fi, both what we think of sci-fi and also what almost like people in the 1950s thought sci-fi would be like.
Right.
Like
Right.
like whoa, all these like
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Also, I think on our outro we're gonna have to do just like those that kid at the end. I think of the first episode did.
Oh yeah. Um, Well, it's funny, right? Because your brother used to do that. I got all these pictures when he was a little baby. That was one of his big thing. Yeah, no, but that was also interesting. Like the cowboy, right? I guess it's the ghoul, right? The cowboy
Mm-hmm.
at the at the party when the bombs go off, right? And he's like a 1950s, right? Because westerns were really big in the 1950s. Well, like Toy Story, right? Toy
Mm-hmm.
Story's about whatever his name
Andy
is,
and
Andy,
and
right?
like
And
the
and and
Buzz
and then it's,
and
yeah, like
Woody.
it's the transition from Andy and Buzz kind of, and that's
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like there's an aspect of it, of all that stuff here, which is interesting, right?
Right.
Like the 1950s, the space when it was cowboys on TV, but and then by 1960 or whatever, we were starting to get into spacemen, and
Yeah.
Snoopy and the space helmet and all that stuff in
Yeah.
the 60s. So, anyways,
The show. Yeah. The
lot
show
going on.
will. Oh, you've only watched 2 episodes of the show,
Yeah.
so you're about a quarter way through. The show will explain so much and leave
Great.
things ready for the next season.
And I
I'm
was going to
excited.
say, I'm hoping there's a next season. I got to think there is, because this is
Yeah, they set some
super
stuff
awesome.
up for the second season and still
Yeah.
managed to finish stuff off for a first season.
Right.
I am pumped.
Right. Well, and maybe maybe we'll try and we'll see who's watched it. We'll try and get some guests on here
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
talk about what they thought. So,
Yeah. So good
anyways,
seeing you.
yes,
Shout out
great
to
to see you,
our 4 subscribers and to Oxhorn.
Oxhorn,
And
for sure. And
we'll
we'll see you soon.
see you soon.
Yeah. Take care.
Dick, you too.